The whole court laughed the day I entered the Luna trials. A kitchen girl, soot under her nails, flour on her apron, no name, no pedigree, no business in the same room as the gleaming, high-born she-wolves who'd come to compete for the right to be the Alpha King's mate, and I walked in among them and put my name forward, and the laughter went around that great hall like a wind through wheat. Every one of them laughed. Every single one. Except the king. The Alpha King stopped laughing first, and that though I didn't understand it for a long while, was the moment everything in my life began to turn. I have thought about that laughter many times since, what it meant, why it came so easily, why a room full of people would find the simple fact of a poor girl's hope so very funny. I think it is because the world has decided long ago that some people are allowed to want things and some are not, and that nothing is quite so absurd to the comfortable as a nobody who forgets her place. The laughter was not really cruelty, most of it. It was certainty. They laughed the way you'd laugh if a sparrow announced it meant to compete with eagles, not from malice exactly, but from the bone-deep assurance that the order of things is fixed, that a kitchen girl is a kitchen girl, and that the very idea of anything else is a joke that tells itself. I had spent my whole life inside that certainty. I more than half believed it myself, which is why of all the people in that hall, the one who could least afford to laugh, and the one who would have been most expected to the king, for whom a kitchen girl candidate was an absurdity and very nearly an insult, was the one who stopped. But I have to go back because you can't understand why a kitchen girl would do such an absurd, impossible thing without knowing about the woman who made me promise to. My name is now Nessa, and I was a kitchen girl in the keep of King Gareth, born low-orphaned young, raised among the pots and the hearths and the long scrubbed tables of the castle kitchens, the kind of girl the great folk walk past without seeing. I had no illusions about what I was. The world had been quite clear with me my whole life about my place in it, low and overlooked and good for work and nothing more. I had learned that lesson the way you learn the shape of a room you've been locked in. But there was one person once who saw me differently, and she changed everything, though she'd been dead a year by the time the trials came. Her name was Isolde, Queen Isolde, the old Luna King Gareth's mother. And she was, everyone agreed, a true Luna, not a decoration, not a beautiful ornament on a throne, but a real one, the mother and protector of the whole pack, the great and the small alike, who knew the names of the lowliest servants and tended the least of her people as fiercely as the greatest, who understood that a Luna's true work is not to be admired, but to care to shield the weak, to hold the whole pack in her heart. The pack had loved her the way you love your own mother. And when I was a small orphan girl in her son's kitchens, the old Luna noticed me. I never fully understood why, but she did. She'd come down to the kitchens, which no queen does, and she'd find me, and she'd talk to me, really talk to me as though my thoughts mattered, as though I were a person and not a pair of working hands. I've wondered since what she saw. I think she saw a child who, even hungry and overlooked and scrubbing pots before dawn, still gave her own bread. To the smaller children, still wept over a wounded bird, still could not walk past suffering without trying to ease it, the things I did without thinking that everyone else overlooked because they came in a scullery apron. Isolde did not overlook them. She watched me share my bread and mind the littler scullions and stand between the cook's temper and some trembling new girl. And one day she took my chin in her hand and said, "There you are. I have been looking for you." I did not know what she meant. I think she meant she had been looking all her life for the heart that would carry the pack on after her, and had found it in the last place anyone would look. And over the years, in secret, she taught me. Not court graces or fine manners. She taught me what she knew what a true Luna is. She'd say, "Nessa, they'll tell you a Luna is the most beautiful she-wolf, or the best born, or the most accomplished. Don't believe them. A Luna is the one who turns back for the one who's fallen. A Luna is the one who protects the smallest and the weakest, even when it costs her, even when no one is watching, even the ones who'd never do the same for her. That's the whole of it. That's the only thing that matters. And you She would say, taking my soot-stained face in her soft old hands, "You have more of it in you than any highborn girl I've ever met. You have the heart of a true Luna child. Don't you ever let them tell you otherwise." I didn't believe her. Not really. I thought she was simply kind, that she said it because she was good, because she had a soft spot for a lonely orphan, and that the moment she was gone, the kindness would go with her, and the world would go back to being what it had always been. But I loved her for saying it. She was the only one who ever had. In a life with no mother, she was the closest thing I'd known to one, and I would have walked into fire for her, and she knew it, and I think that is partly why she trusted me with the promise she did. And before she died, I held her hand at the end. I was there. She did two things. She pressed into my hand her own pendant, a small, worn, silver crescent moon, on a cord the Luna's own moon that she'd worn all her life. And she made me promise. When I'm gone, she said, they'll hold the trials to choose a Luna for my son. And every highborn family in the pack will send their gleaming daughters, and they'll all be wrong Nessa, every one of them, because they'll have everything but the heart. So I want you to promise me, when the trials come, you enter. You. No matter what they say, no matter how they laugh, the pack needs a true Luna, and you have the heart for it, and you will enter for me because I am asking you with my dying breath. Promise me. And I promised weeping, because how do you refuse a dying woman the one thing she asks? So that is why I did it. Not because I believed I could win, not because I believed even for a moment that a kitchen girl could be the Alpha King's Luna, but because the only person who ever saw worth in me made me swear as she died that I would try, and I keep my promises. The day I entered, I wore Isolde's moon pendant under my apron, and I walked into that great hall full of glittering highborn she-wolves, and I put my name forward, Nessa of the Kitchens, and the laughter rose like a wind. The cruelest of it came from Lady Vesper, the favorite, the most beautiful and best-born and most ruthlessly polished of all the candidates, who looked at me as one looks at something the cat dragged in and laughed loudest of all and asked the hall whether the scullery was now to be honored with a crown. And the king, King Gareth the Alpha, who sat above it all, weary and grieving his mother and watching the parade of gleaming candidates with a look I'd later understand was quiet despair, the king, for one moment, almost laughed too. A flicker of it crossed his face, the same disbelief everyone felt a kitchen girl. But then his eyes found me, really found me. Standing there, with my chin up and my soot and my dead queen's pendant hidden at my throat, and he stopped, mid-breath. He stopped laughing, and he looked at me, and something in his face changed and went still and watchful. He was the first to stop. The whole hall laughed on, and the Alpha King had already fallen silent, watching the kitchen girl as though he'd glimpsed something no one else in the room could see. The early trials were designed to humiliate a girl like me, though that wasn't their purpose. It was simply their effect. They tested the things the highborn candidates had spent their whole lives mastering, and I had never been taught at all. The graces of the court, the bearing of a lady, the arts of beauty and refinement and elegant accomplishment. A kitchen girl among them was a sparrow among peacocks, and they made very sure I knew it. Lady Vesper led the mockery, and she was an artist at it. A cutting word here, a cruel little laugh there, a way of looking at me that made me feel the soot would never wash off. The others followed her lead, they always do. Cruelty is a fashion the insecure are quick to adopt. I was tripped accidentally. My plain clothes were laughed at beside their silks. When I spoke, they exchanged glances. I was meant to crumble, to flee, to give them the satisfaction of watching the kitchen girl learn her place and slink back to the hearths where she belonged. I did not crumble. I want to be clear about that because it matters. I had spent my whole life being looked down on. Their contempt was nothing I hadn't tasted 1,000 times, and I had long ago learned to wear it like a second apron to keep my chin up and my work flawless and let them laugh. So I endured the early trials with a stubborn, quiet dignity that I think unsettled them, because a thing you mean to break is so much less satisfying when it won't break. And more than that, and this surprised them, And surprised me, I did not merely survive the trials. Here and there I shone, because the early trials weren't only about silk and curtsies. Underneath the surface, they tested judgment and bearing and the way a woman carries herself under pressure. And there, in the things that mattered beneath the glitter, Isolde's years of secret teaching showed. I had a steadiness the pampered candidates lacked. I had a way of speaking plainly and truly that cut through their practiced flutter. I had, though, I'd never have called it that, a kind of substance, the thing the old Luna had poured into me, drop by drop in the kitchens, and it kept showing through the soot and the court, which had come to laugh, began here and there to fall uneasily quiet. There was a moment I remember it because it was the first time I saw a candidate falter and understood dimly what the trials were really measuring. We were asked each in turn what we believed the first duty of a Luna to be, and the high-born ladies gave their polished answers to be a fitting ornament to the king, to strengthen the pack's alliances, to bear strong heirs to grace the court, each answer prettier and emptier than the last. And when it came to me, the kitchen girl and the hall, braced to laugh, I said the only thing I knew. The thing Isolde had taught me, that the first duty of a Luna is to the weakest soul in the pack. The orphan, the servant, the forgotten, the one no one else will trouble to protect, because a pack is only as strong as its care for its least, and a Luna who guards only the great has failed at the one thing the title is for. The hall did not laugh. There was a silence instead, an uncomfortable one. The silence of fine people who have just heard a scullery girl say, "The truest thing said all day," and up on his high seat, the king leaned forward just slightly and did not take his eyes off me for a long time after, and the king watched. All through those early trials, I felt his eyes on me. King Gareth grieving and weary on his high seat, watching the kitchen girl with that still intent look that had nothing of mockery in it. I learned later what he was thinking. He had been dreading these trials. He had watched the gleaming daughters of every great family parade their beauty and their pedigree and their accomplishments, and he had felt with growing despair that not one of them had the thing he was actually looking for, the thing his mother had been the true Luna heart, the care for the whole pack that no amount of polish can fake, and that he was going to have to choose a beautiful empty crown to sit beside him, because that was all anyone had brought him. And then a kitchen girl had walked in, mocked by all, and he had seen in the way she held herself, and the things she said, and the substance beneath the soot, the first flicker of the thing he'd despaired of finding. He didn't understand it yet, but he couldn't stop watching for it. And here's the thing that should have made me glad, and instead made me afraid. As I did well as the king's attention turned toward me, as small, genuine moments of regard began to come, I could not believe a single one of them, not one. Because I had learned in a hard life a hard lesson that good things for a kitchen girl are traps, that every time the world has seemed to offer me something good, a kindness, a favor, a chance, it was either snatched away or revealed in the end to be a setup for a crueler humiliation. The world does not give good things to scullery orphans. It only pretends to for sport. So I had built a wall long ago, made of not hoping. I did not let myself want things. I did not let myself believe in kindness. I braced always for every good thing to turn out to be a cruelty, because hope was the thing that got you hurt. Hope was the bare throat you offered to the knife. I could give you 100 small reasons I'd learned it. The time I was promised a place above the scullery and turned up to find it had been a joke arranged so the older girls could watch my face fall. The festivals where a kind word from someone better off always turned out to have a cruelty folded inside it. The slow accumulated lesson of a childhood spent watching good things go to other people and bait go to me. By the time I was grown, the bracing was not even a choice anymore. It was simply how I was built. Show me something good, and the part of my mind that had kept me from being crushed all my life would whisper calm and certain, "Don't. It isn't real. It's a setup. The better it looks, the worse the fall it's hiding. want nothing and nothing can be taken. It was a miserable way to live, but it had never once been wrong. And a thing that has never once been wrong is very hard to stop believing. And so when the king looked at me with what seemed like genuine regard, when he spoke to me once quietly with what seemed like genuine warmth, "You have a rare quality, Nessa. I find I can't look away from it. I did not let it touch me." I curtsied and I deflected, and inside I thought with the certainty of long experience, this is the cruelest part of the joke. They've sent the king himself to toy with the kitchen girl to make her hope, so the humiliation will be all the greater when the trapdoor opens. I clutched Isolde's pendant, and I held to her belief in me like a candle in the dark, and I could not for the life of me believe a word of it was real. The trial that changed everything was a trial of the wild. The candidates were taken out beyond the keep into the high, rough country where the pack's borders ran a trial of endurance and nerve to cross a stretch of treacherous land alone and prove we had the strength a Luna needs. It was real country and real danger cliffs and fast cold water and the kind of terrain that kills the careless. And the rule of the trial was plain and cold, as such rules often are, each woman for herself. The first to reach the far side advanced. To stop for another was to lose your own standing, perhaps your own footing, perhaps your own life. Aluna, the masters of the trial, said, must be strong enough to survive. We took that to mean strong enough to leave others behind. It went wrong at the gorge. There was a crossing, a narrow ledge above a deep ravine, and a rush of icy water far below, and Lady Vesper ahead of me, sure of herself, hurrying to be first put her weight wrong on the wet stone, and the ledge gave way beneath her, and she fell. Not all the way, she caught herself barely on a jut of rock part way down, clinging there above the killing drop, the water roaring below her grip, failing, screaming for help. And the other candidates strung out along the trail stopped and looked and then went on, one by one. Because the rule was each woman for herself, because helping her meant losing the trial and risking the same fall because Lady Vesper was a rival, and there is no profit in saving a rival. They left her there, the favorite, the most beautiful and best born of them all, clinging to a rock above her death, and her fellow high-born ladies stepped around the danger and hurried on toward the finish and left her to fall. I came up the trail and saw it. Saw Vesper clinging there, her grip slipping her face white with terror. Vesper, who had mocked me most cruelly of anyone who had asked the hall whether the scullery deserved a crown, who had made my every day in the trials a small misery. The one rival in all the world I had the most reason to leave to her fate, and the rule was clear: to help her was to lose, to throw away the trial, to risk the fall myself. I won't pretend the thought didn't come. It did for half a heartbeat, the small, ugly, human thought that here was justice, that she would have left me, that the rules said, go on, that no one would even blame me. It came, and I felt it the way you feel cold water. And then it was gone, washed clean away by something stronger and older and surer. Isolde's voice as clear as if she stood beside me on that ledge. Aluna is the one who turns back for the one who's fallen, even the ones who'd never do the same for her, especially them. And I understood in that half-second that this was the whole of it, that everything the old Luna had poured into me had been pouring toward exactly this moment, this choice, this ledge, and that, if I went on, I might win a contest, but I would lose the only thing she'd ever told me I had. So I turned back. I went down onto that ledge, onto the wet stone that had already given way once, and I reached for the woman who had tormented me. And I caught her wrist as her grip failed, and I hauled with everything I had, my own feet sliding on the wet rock, the drop roaring beneath us both, my shoulder screaming, my fingers slipping on her cold wrist and clamping down again, and I dragged Lady Vesper up off the face of her own death, inch by terrible inch, and back onto the trail, and we collapsed there, gasping in the mud, alive, while every other candidate ran on toward a finish I had just thrown away. Vesper was sobbing, shaking, staring at me as if she had never in her life seen anything she understood less than the kitchen girl who had just saved her. I had lost the trial. I knew it even as I lay there, my chest heaving the mud cold beneath me. I had sacrificed my standing, very nearly my life, to save the one woman who'd been cruelest to me. By every rule of the contest, I had failed. And I remember thinking, with a strange calm, that I didn't care that Isolde would not have cared either, that there are things worth more than winning, and that a Luna who'd let a woman fall to her death to advance in a contest would be no Luna, at all crown or no crown. And the king! King Gareth, who had ridden out to watch the trial from the high ground, who had seen the whole of it. The ledge give way, the candidates step around their screaming rival and run on, and the mock kitchen girl turn back and go down onto the killing stone to save the woman who'd tormented her. The king stopped. He stopped the way you stop when something you'd given up hoping for walks into the room. The court that had ridden out with him was murmuring, some of them still inclined to laugh at the kitchen girl who'd just thrown away the trial, and the Alpha King, up on the high ground, was not laughing. He had gone utterly still and utterly silent, his eyes fixed on me where I lay in the mud, with the rival I'd saved, and there was something on his face that silenced everyone around him by degrees, until the whole company had stopped laughing too, because the king had stopped. First, the way he always stopped first, and they followed. He understood what he'd just seen. A Luna is the one who turns back for the fallen, who protects the whole pack, even her enemy, even at her own cost, even when it loses her everything. Not one highborn candidate had done it. The kitchen girl had done it without a heartbeat's hesitation for the very woman who'd been cruelest to her. And in that moment, watching me drag Lady Vesper up off the face of the gorge, the Alpha King knew past all doubt that the only true Luna among them all was the kitchen girl they had laughed at. They laughed when the kitchen girl entered the Luna trials. The Alpha King stopped laughing first, and on a muddy ledge above a roaring gorge, he stopped for good. And there was more, a thing I didn't see. But he did. As I'd hauled Vesper up, my collar had torn open, and Isolde's pendant had swung free of my apron at last, the small, worn silver crescent moon, and the king, watching through the clear, high air, had seen it. And he knew that pendant. He had seen it at his mother's throat every day of his life. And in the space of one breath, the king understood a thing that turned his astonishment into something far deeper, that the kitchen girl, who had just shown the truest Luna heart he'd ever witnessed, was wearing his dead mother's moon, and that the heart he was looking at was no accident at all. After the gorge, everything was different, and the difference terrified me more than the contempt ever had. Vesper, when she could speak, did not mock me. She looked at me as though she'd never seen me before, as though hanging above her own death, and watching her highborn sisters run on while the kitchen girl came down to save her. She'd learned something about who was truly worth what, and she said low and shaken, "You should have let me fall. I would have let you fall." And I said the only thing there was to say, the thing Isolde would have said, "I know. That's exactly why I didn't." And something in her face broke, and the cruelty went out of it, and she never mocked me again. Whatever Vesper became after that day, she became it, because a kitchen girl had refused to let her die. And the king's regard after the gorge was no longer something I could pretend not to see. He sought me out openly now. He spoke to me as though I were the only person in any room. He looked at me with a warmth, a wonder, a want that the whole court began to notice and to murmur about the Alpha King, plainly, impossibly drawn to the kitchen girl. He made his preference known in 100 small ways and then in larger ones until it became the scandal and the talk of the whole keep that King Gareth seemed to mean to choose as his Luna, a girl from his own scullery. And it should have been everything. It was everything I had never let myself dream of, and I could not believe a single moment of it, and I was bracing every hour for the trap door to open. Because this was the cruelest possible version of the trap my whole life had taught me to expect. A kitchen girl does not get chosen by a king. Good things are not real for girls like me. They are bait, and the better the good thing looks, the worse the humiliation it's hiding. So I was certain in my very bones that I was being toyed with on a grand scale, that the king's regard was a game or a pity or a cruelty I couldn't yet see the shape of. that the whole court was watching the kitchen girl be allowed to hope to half believe, so that the laughter would be all the more crushing when the truth came out. Did you really think scullery girl? Did you really believe a king would have you? I had survived my whole life by never letting myself hope, because hope is the bare throat offered to the knife. And now here was the greatest hope of my life dangled in front of me, and every instinct I had screamed that to reach for it was to be destroyed. So I pulled back from the very thing I wanted most. When the king's warmth reached for me, I went cold and careful and small. I deflected. I would not let myself believe, would not let myself want, would not be the fool who reached for the good thing and had it ripped away to the sound of laughter. Better, I told myself to keep my dignity and expect nothing than to hope and be shattered. And then the trap door seemed to open after all, except it was the court's, not the king's. Because the council and the great families would not have it. A kitchen girl as Luna was unthinkable. An insult to every high-born house, a throwing away of the alliances, a royal marriage was meant to secure a scandal that could not be borne. The pressure on the king mounted choose a suitable Luna. They demanded a high-born daughter, an alliance tradition sense. Dismiss the kitchen girl. End the farce. And word of it reached me that the court was forcing the king to a choice that a kitchen girl, Luna, would never be allowed, that I was to be sent back to the scullery and a proper high-born lady crowned. And I thought, there it is. There's the trapdoor. I knew it. I always knew it. It almost came as a relief, in a terrible way, the relief of being proven right. All through the days of the king's strange warmth, the part of me that had kept me alive had been waiting for exactly this. And now here it was on schedule, the way it always came. The good thing dangled the hope allowed to swell, and then the cold machinery of the world grinding in to take it away. Of course, the council would forbid it. Of course, there would be alliances and tradition and the dignity of great houses. Of course, a kitchen girl could not really be chosen. I had let myself, against all my own warnings, drift toward believing, toward hoping, and now I was going to pay for it, the way you always pay, for hope. And I was furious at myself for the lapse, and underneath the fury was a grief so large I couldn't look at it directly. And so I did what a lifetime of bracing for the knife had trained me to do. I decided to leave, to withdraw, to go back to the kitchens of my own will, before I could be cast out and laughed at, to protect the one thing I'd always managed to keep, which was the dignity of never having let them see me hope. I would not stand in that great hall and be publicly dismissed, would not give them the spectacle of the kitchen girl's face when the good thing was ripped away. If I was going to lose it, and I had always known I would, then I would lose it on my own terms, quietly, with my chin up the way I'd lost everything by walking away before it could be taken, so that no one could say they'd seen me broken. I gathered my few things. I would slip back to the hearths where I belonged, where good things had never been real, and so could never be taken. I touched Isolde's pendant, and I asked her silently to forgive me for not being able to believe what she'd believed I tried. I told her. I tried to have your faith, but it was always going to come to this. You must have known a kitchen girl could only ever borrow such things and never keep them. And on the day the king was to make his choice before the whole court, the day I meant to already be gone, King Gareth sent for me. And I went, because you do not refuse a king even to be humiliated. I went to that great hall where the whole court was assembled, and the high-born candidates waited gleaming, and the council watched. And I stood there. The kitchen girl braced for the trapdoor, certain. At last the laughter was coming, and the Alpha King rose from his seat to make his choice. He came down from the high seat. That was the first wrong thing. Kings do not come down. He walked the length of that great hall, past the gleaming candidates, past the watching council, straight to where I stood, braced for my humiliation. And he stopped in front of the kitchen girl, before the whole assembled court, and he spoke so all could hear. "I have made my choice," King Gareth said, "and I am told it is the wrong one. I am told a kitchen girl cannot be Luna, that I must choose a high-born daughter for the alliances, for tradition, for the dignity of the great house. His eyes were on me, only me. And I am telling all of you here now that I will not. I choose Nessa, the girl you laughed at, the girl from my own kitchens, because I have watched through all these trials every gleaming high-born lady you brought me, and not one of them had the thing a Luna must have. And then I watched a kitchen girl turn back on a killing ledge to save the rival who had tormented her at the cost of the trial, and very nearly her life for nothing, expecting nothing. And I knew. A Luna is the one who turns back for the fallen, the one who protects the whole pack, even her enemy, even at her own cost. There is exactly one woman in this hall who has shown me that heart, and she is not highborn, and she is not what tradition would choose, and she is the only true Luna among you, and I will have her, or I will have none. The hall was silent, and I stood there and I could not move, and the wall, the lifelong wall, good things or traps never hope. Brace for the Knife was screaming at me that this was it. The cruelest moment the bait fully revealed before the trapdoor dropped. So I did the only thing my terror allowed. I whispered so only he could hear, "Please, please don't. I know what this is. I know it's not real. A king doesn't choose a kitchen girl. It's a game, a cruelty. And the moment I let myself believe it, everyone will." My voice broke. I've spent my whole life learning that good things shown to girls like me are traps. That hope is what gets you hurt. So please, whatever this is, end it quickly, and let me go back to the kitchens with what dignity I have left before you let them laugh. And King Gareth looked at me with a terrible tenderness, and he understood. I saw him understand the whole shape of the wall I lived behind, and he answered it not with words alone, but with the thing he had just done. "Nessa, look around this hall." His voice was low now, just for me, though the whole court strained to hear. "Look at what I have just done. I have defied my entire council. I have refused every great house. I have thrown away the alliances of a royal marriage and set the whole tradition of my people on its ear publicly before everyone in a way I can never take back. Do you understand a man does not do that as a joke? A man does not burn down his own court's expectations at enormous cost to toy with a kitchen girl for sport. I have just paid in front of everyone a price no cruelty would ever pay, because it is real, Nessa. My regard for you is real. My choice is real. This is not bait, and there is no trapdoor, and no one is going to laugh because I have just staked my crown's whole standing on you, and I would not do that for anything in this world but the truth." He went on gently, and he was finding the exact shape of the wall and dismantling it stone by stone. "I know why you can't believe it. You've told yourself your whole life that good things shown to a girl like you are traps, and you were right to Nessa because they have been. The world taught you that with 1,000 cruelties, and I will not pretend it lied. But here is the thing. Your suspicion has never had to reckon with before, and the reason I did this here in front of everyone, instead of in some quiet room where you could tell yourself it wasn't real. Bait is cheap. A cruel joke costs the joker nothing. That's what makes it a joke. But what I've just done is the opposite of cheap. I have spent something I can never get back in front of every soul who matters to choose you. And a thing that costs it the giver everything is the one thing that cannot be a trick because no one pays that price for sport. So you don't have to take my word, Nessa. You can do the arithmetic you've done your whole life. What's the catch? What's the cost? Who profits from my fall? And you'll find for the first time that the numbers only work if it's true. I've made it so the only possible explanation for what I just did is that I love you. There's no other answer that adds up. I made certain of it. His voice gentled further. You have spent your whole life certain that good things shown to you are traps that hope is the throat offered to the knife. and I am proving to you, in the only way that could possibly reach you by paying for it, where everyone can see that this good thing is not going to be ripped away. You are allowed to believe it. You are allowed to hope. I have made it safe. Hope, Nessa. I dare you." And the wall cracked because he was right. A man does not set fire to his own court as a joke. The price he'd just paid in front of everyone was the one thing my lifelong suspicion had no answer for. The good thing was real, because he had made it cost too much to be anything else. And then he did the thing that undid me completely. He reached out gently and touched the pendant at my throat. His oldest silver moon swung free again, and his own eyes filled. "I know whose this is, he said softly. "I saw it on the ledge. It was my mother's. She wore it every day of her life." He swallowed. "Which means you knew her. The kitchen girl who has the truest Luna heart I've ever seen, who turned back for her enemy without thinking, who carries herself with a substance none of the highborn could match. You were hers, weren't you? She found you in my kitchens. She taught you. She believed in you." His voice broke. "My mother spent her last years telling me the trials would bring me everything but a true heart, and that I'd have to look in the place no one else would think to look. I thought she was just being kind to the servants, as she always was. But she wasn't being kind, was she? She was telling me. She found the true Luna years ago in a scullery orphan and shaped her and believed in her and left her a moon and a promise, and then she sent her to me from beyond the grave by making her swear to enter." I could only nod, the tears coming now past any holding back. "She used to come down to the kitchens," I managed. "No one understood why. She'd find me, and she'd talk to me, and she taught me everything what a Luna really is. She said I had the heart of one. I never believed her. I thought she was only being kind." My hand closed around the moon. She made me promise at the end that I'd enter the trials. I only did it for her. I never once thought that she might have been right. Tears were running freely down the Alpha King's face, now a king, weeping before his whole court and not caring. "Nessa, my mother was the wisest soul I ever knew, and she was right about everyone. Always. It was uncanny the way she could look at a person and see what they truly were under, whatever they showed the world. And in the last year of her life, when she knew the trials were coming and knew she wouldn't live to guide my choice, she did the only thing she could. She found the true Luna herself while she still could, and she made certain, by a promise extracted from a girl who keeps her promises, that that Luna would walk into my hall when the time came, even if everyone laughed, even if the girl herself didn't believe she belonged there. She chose you for me, Nessa. From beyond her own death. She reached past the grave and put my Luna in front of me and trusted me to be wise enough to see what she saw. And on a ledge above a gorge, watching you save the woman who'd tormented you, I finally did. I saw exactly what my mother saw. She was right. She was right about everything the way she was always right, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful to her for it, and to you, for keeping the promise you made her even when you couldn't believe a word of why she'd asked it. I was weeping then, and so was half the hall, and the council had gone very quiet, and somewhere among the candidates, Lady Vesper was looking at me with something that was not contempt at all. Because the dead Luna's faith in a kitchen orphan, the faith I had never been able to believe, had just been proven true before the whole court, vindicated by the very ledge where I'd turned back, recognized by the very sun she'd shaped me for. She believed in me, I whispered, holding the moon, and I could never believe it of myself. I thought it died with her. It didn't die, King Gareth said. It's standing in front of me wearing her moon, having just out-Luna'd every high-born lady in my kingdom. She was right, Nessa. You have the heart of a true Luna. You always did, and I am not asking you to be my Luna because my mother chose you, or because you saved Vesper, or for any reason but the simplest one. He took my hands before the whole court, the king, and the kitchen girl. I love you, The real you, the one with the soot and the stubborn chin and the heart bigger than this whole hall. And I have made it safe for you to believe that and safe for you to hope. And now I am only asking you to choose it, freely. Not because a dead queen wished it, not because a king commands it, because you want it, the way you've never let yourself want anything. Will you be my Luna? Will you let yourself finally have the good thing and believe it's real? And I let myself for the first time in my whole life believe a good thing was real, and I chose it. I was crowned the Luna of the pack, the kitchen girl they had laughed at, and I wore Isolde's silver moon at my throat, the old Luna's moon on the new Luna she had chosen. And the pack came to love me, the way they had loved her, because I tried every day to be the thing she taught me to be, the one who turns back for the fallen, who protects the whole pack, the great and the small alike, who never forgets the scullery she came from or the least of the people she serves. Lady Vesper in time became something like a friend, humbled and changed by the day a kitchen girl chose to save her over a crown. She told me once that I taught her on that ledge what she was supposed to have been learning her whole life. The council learned to hold their tongues, and then watching me learned something better than holding their tongues. And King Gareth, my Gareth, kept faith with me every day. The man who had paid in front of the whole world to prove that a good thing could be real for a girl who'd never dared believe it. It took me a long time to fully unlearn the bracing, the lifelong flinch, the waiting for the trap door. Old habits of a hard heart die slow. But every day, Gareth made the good thing real again, and every day, it didn't get ripped away until at last I stopped waiting for the knife and let myself simply be loved and be Luna and be home. They laughed when the kitchen girl entered the Luna trials. The Alpha King stopped laughing first because he was looking where everyone else was only laughing, and he saw the one true thing in the room. And a dead queen who had found a true heart in a scullery orphan and believed in it when no one else would, was proven right before the whole pack at last. I keep her moon. I'll wear it all my life the way she did. And when I find a lonely, overlooked child in my own kitchens someday, and I look always, I will do for her what Isolde did for me. I will sit down beside her and talk to her as though her thoughts matter and teach her what a true heart is and tell her she is worth more than the world has told her and mean it. Because that is what a true Luna is, and that is how the line of them goes on, not by blood, but by one overlooked heart finding the next and believing in it and passing the moon along. Isolde taught me that, and she was right about everything, including the kitchen girl no one believed in but her.